Maybe it'll come from this conversation with the great Bill Shaikin of the LA Times, who was up there at the All-Star game, and I thought put together a really kind of fascinating article, interesting entry point into the Shohei Ohtani conversation. Bill, great to have you. How you doing?
Good afternoon. How are you?
We're fantastic, man. Thanks for hopping on. So as you're going around player to player and you're saying, hey, make your pitch for Shohei Ohtani, like, did you have to go talk to the Pirates and the A's, like gritting your teeth, or did you approach them all the same way?
No, pretty much approached everybody the same way. I wanted to try and have some fun with it. And I figure, as much as it might be interesting to hear from guys who are on teams that are going to have a legitimate shot at Shohei Ohtani, might also be fun to hear, what guys who are on the A's and the Pirates say. And I love, David Bednar, the closer from the Pirates, kind of looks at me and starts laughing. He goes, French fries, man. That's all we got.
Yeah.
Which I didn't even know was a thing. Did you know that French fries were a thing in Pittsburgh?
Permonti brothers.
No, of course.
That's right.
Yeah.
Of course.
That's right. So, Bill, we talked about the guys that kind of joked about it, then the guys that were serious. Of course, as Giants fans, it felt like Alex Cobb took it seriously. We also heard Mookie Betts. Did those guys feel like they were taking it seriously when you asked them the question? And was there anybody else that also sounded like they were taking it seriously?
I mean, all the Dodger guys were, to the extent that Freddie Freeman was very careful not to say anything whatsoever about it. And I think on the national broadcast of the game, it came up, and he's like, nope, sorry. So he told them the same thing. Everybody would love to have him. I don't think that's any great secret. But what I think is interesting is at the start of the season, you figured, okay, the one thing we know about Shohei is that he wants to win. And really, that's about all we know. He's not told anybody anything. Anybody who tells you that they know that Shohei wants to play here or play there is just making it up. So as far as winning, you looked at the beginning of the season and said, well, what teams look like they're going to win and are spending a lot of money? Because obviously if you're going to sign Shohei, you're going to need a lot of money. And you would have said the Mets and the Padres. And I'm sure those teams will still pursue him, but right now, well, those teams aren't winning. It's going to be a long-term contract. I don't think anybody is going to value him based on 1 year, and I don't think he's going to pick a team just based on 1 year. But then you go, okay, well, who else has money and can win? And obviously the Dodgers are the first name that everybody thinks of, but the second team is pretty much the Giants. The Giants have spent the last few winters offering a lot of money and getting turned down by Bryce Harper, by Aaron Judge, I guess by the surgeon that reviewed Carlos Correa's MRI or X-ray.
Yep.
All works out in the end, right? But, the Giants have that big development called Mission Rock behind right field coming online. They're going to make even more money. They already make a ton of money. I can't think of a better fit. And if he doesn't want to stay in Southern California, I think he'd have to look long and hard at San Francisco.
Okay, Bill Shaikin, LA Times, really good. So also one thing that I hadn't even been thinking of this year, when you talked to Alex Cobb, I was like, all right, they were teammates. So what was that interaction like, and what did you gather from talking to Alex?
Just that he said he thought he had as good a handle as anyone can have on how Shohei feels, and he thought, the Giants would be such a good match that, hopefully they could get him over the winter, and he would be happy to help. But, if not, they'll be happy to trade for him right now.
Would they? Because we've been tossing that around a lot, Bill, and here's my quick spin on it, which is, first of all, you're really kind of going crazy for 10 weeks of Shohei. I think the idea that you can use those 10 weeks to convince him of something is a little overdone. And wouldn't you want, if you're Shohei, wouldn't you want the top prospects from a certain team that you're going to join? Wouldn't you want them still on that team for the next 10 years?
Well, I would imagine Shohei and his agents will look at where those teams look to be over the next 10 years. And more importantly, I think when he goes and meets with the teams that he decides he wants to sit down with, they'll present him with their long-term plans for the next 5 to 10 years. I think the question in terms of a trade is, Number one, the Angels, at least this point, say they're not doing it. Could they change their minds? Of course. Are they going to win anything this year? Probably not. But if you trade Shohei Ohtani, you got to get something really good back in return. Yet on the other side, a team that, as you mentioned, is giving up a lot for 10 weeks, they might not know if they're going to be able to re-sign him because Shohei appears determined to try free agency. Why not? He's this close, right? So maybe what you give up for a guy you're only going to have for 10 weeks isn't going to be good enough for the Angels to make the trade. I mean, it's one thing to say you don't want to be the team that let Shohei Ohtani walk out of town, but it'd be a lot worse to be the team that traded Shohei and got back 3 pitchers, and none of them turned out to be very good.
That's a great point, Bill. Bill, after you talked to the players on the other teams, did you talk to Shohei about what they said at all, or no?
Shohei is not freely available, I guess. Is that the right way to put it? He did a brief press conference after the game. We talked to him about the Seattle fans who, for those who didn't watch the game, were very, very loud and chanting, "Come to Seattle," every time he came to bat. Mm-hmm. And he said he'd never heard anything like that. He said he likes the city. He's actually lived there a little bit in the off season, but he's very polite. So, if you asked him, would you like to play in fill in the blank? He would say, I like fill in the blank.
Right.
Very smart. I mean, there's no point in putting his cards on the table now.
Bill Shaikin, LA Times, who at the All-Star game went around to stars from different teams and asked them to give their pitch to Shohei Ohtani. Put the teams aside for a second, Bill. What do you think the contract is going to look like?
That's a great question because it's everybody's favorite guessing game in baseball. 1, where do you think he signs? And 2, for how much? And I guess the ultimate question comes down to, is there going to be an owner that's going to say, and I'm just using rounding numbers here, you're a $30 million a year player as a hitter, you're a $30 million a year player as a pitcher, so I will give you $60 million. Is there an owner like that? Only takes one, right? I think the other thing to consider is, given all the great stuff Shohei's done in his career, maybe you're really tempted to sign him, but you don't want that 10-year deal. So maybe you say, I'm going to offer you $100 million a year for 4 years. I don't know that that's going to happen, but there have been teams that have tried massive contracts and short-term deals before. No reason somebody might not offer that just to see what happens.
Bill, in terms of owners and who's going to open their wallets, we're here in the Bay Area. Just tell us, how much are the Dodgers going to be in this sweepstakes, this Shohei Ohtani sweepstakes? We got to worry about them or not too much? You already got enough stars down there.
Everything the Dodgers have done over the past, let's say, 12 months has pointed to them making a run at Shohei Ohtani. They've signed guys on 1-year contracts to clear up some payroll. For a team that has Mookie Betts and Freddie Freeman, they don't have a lot of money tied up in their payroll for next year beyond those players. They will be in great financial shape. They made sure of it. Now, is that enough? We'll see. I mean, if Shohei says, I want to go to a team that wins first and foremost, it's hard to argue against the Dodgers. They've been in the playoffs 10 straight years. But again, we don't know what his priorities are going to be. We don't know if he wants to stay in Southern California or if he doesn't. So, we'll see. And if he wants to stay in Southern California, he can re-sign with the Angels. He hasn't ruled that out. He could go to San Diego where, signing with guys for long-term contracts is sort of a civic hobby now.
Right.
There's options. So it's not even like, does he like it where he is or does he move out of town? Because he can like it here and still sign with a different team.
So this sort of leads us to something we were batting around yesterday. Bill Shaikin, LA Times, is with us, and that's this. And I know we don't know exactly what makes Shohei tick, but if he truly wants to be like the centerpiece, is there almost something working against the Dodgers and Padres because they already have amazing middle-of-the-order players? Would that almost in a way be a detractor, like I'm joining something. It's almost got a Kevin Durant to the Warriors feel. You know what I mean, Bill?
Well, I would say that he spent his entire major league career playing with Mike Trout, who might be the best player in baseball over that period. So he's used to that. Whether it bothers him or not, I guess only he would answer. And then you weigh that against, well, if you want to win, he should know better than anybody. It takes more than one or two guys because he spent the last 6 years playing with Mike Trout, right? And he hasn't been in the playoffs. So we'll see.
Bill, if you were a betting man and we just said, where's he going to go? Off the top of your head, don't even think about it. What would be your guess?
As of today, with what I know about what Shohei is thinking, which is nothing, look, the Dodgers make the most sense. I mean, he seems comfortable in Southern California. He wants to win. When the Dodgers and Giants and other teams were trying to get him in 2017 when he came over from Japan, the National League didn't have a DH, but now the National League does. So that obstacle is off the table. So who's got the money? Who's got the need? You'd like to think that the West Coast has an edge in terms of, shorter flights home to Japan than if he played for, say, the Yankees or the Mets or the Red Sox. But really nobody knows. So I think it'll be a fun sport. If I had a bet, I would bet only a nickel, and I would bet on the Dodgers or the Giants. So 2.5 cents on each.
I was going to say, you like what you said about 10 minutes ago sounded like you think that the Giants are at minimum the second horse.
Well, I think they're in position to get him. I think the Dodgers are in position to get him. Whether that's what he wants to do or not, we don't know because we don't know what his priorities are.
And do you think I know you said they could change their mind. Your best guess. He stays on the Angels this month, you think, Bill?
I think that he does because they're still on the fringes of the wild card race, so it's not impossible they could get back in it.
Yeah.
If you're going to lose him, do you want to lose him before you have to? Or can you still enjoy the last couple months? I mean, he could be challenging Aaron Judge's American League home run record right now. I mean, he leads the majors in home runs.
Bill,
if you trade him, everybody says fill up your farm system, right? Well,
right.
Again, you said the 10 weeks, and you're right. So your haul for 10 weeks is not going to be your haul that it would be if you traded him last year, right? He could still help another team to the playoffs, and maybe that's enough to get some prospects or a young major league ball player. But, the Angels are not one player away either. So I just, as much as, you don't want to let him walk out the door for nothing except the draft pick, you got to really, really, really be sure you're hitting on what you're trading for Shohei Ohtani. And that's a really hard thing to do.
Bill Shaikin, LA Times. By the way, real quick, outside of him, what kind of deadline do you expect? What's your thought on what's going on with the Cardinals, for example?
It's worse than the Angels.
Yeah.
Basically, the trade deadline in a nutshell is everybody is looking for starting pitching. Everybody's looking for pitching in general. There is not going to be enough to go around. So I would suspect that while some teams like to say, well, let's wait till the deadline and, we'll get the best possible return in the final hour before the deadline, I'm sure there will be other teams that will say, boys, we got a pitcher ready to move right now. You can get 2 or 3 extra starts out of them if you bid us up right now. And I wouldn't be surprised to see a couple trades in the next, say, week to 10 days.
Bill, Willard and I have been talking about the All-Star break and the All-Star game and how athletic baseball is right now with the rule changes, things like that. Let me ask you a question. This is the most star power MLB has had since when?
That's a great question. We do have a lot of young stars coming up, and baseball has finally embraced them instead of telling them not to flip their bat, not to show their personality.
Right.
And you see it, in some of the non-traditional markets. It's one thing for, the Dodgers or the Giants to bring up a young player, and the Giants have done a great job this year with the young players already there, and I know there's more coming. But you see a guy like in Cincinnati, Ellie De La Cruz, like this could be the face of baseball, and we've been spending the last few years arguing whether it's Aaron Judge or Mike Trout or Shohei Ohtani, and the fact that it could be a guy in Cincinnati, I think, is a great thing for baseball.
Bill, great stuff. When you spoke to Brent Rooker of the A's, he didn't laugh. He just, like, he took that for real, huh?
He took it for real, and then I said, okay, but seriously. And he goes, well, he's probably not coming to Oakland.
Okay.
But look, I mean, if you sign a long-term contract with the A's, you don't even know where you're going to be playing for the next 4 years.
Well, that's the other thing. I loved his quote where he's like, I don't think he's going to end up in Oakland. And I'm like, Brent, neither are you. Don't you know that? Ugh, what a mess. Hey, Bill, thanks, man.
All right.